Okay, so we're given a trapezoid here with some intersecting lines, and then we're given some given information. So the first given information that we're given is that angle HEF, or angle HEF, is supplementary to angle EHG. So angle HEF is supplementary to angle EHG. So we'll recall that supplementary means that the two angles sum to 180 degrees. And then angle GFE is supplementary to angle FGH. All right, then we're given some other information, and so we can write that right here. We're also given that angle EHF is congruent to angle FGE. So angle EHF is congruent to angle FGE. And that's given with our little notation right here, these little curved lines. Then angle GHF is congruent to angle HGE. So GHF is congruent to angle HGE. All right, and that's indicated by this notation as well. So how are we going to conclude? How are we going to conclude that angle HEF is congruent to angle GFE? How are we going to do that? Well, let's start our proof. I'm gonna let me zoom out a little bit just so that you can keep everything in the screen here. And we're gonna make our table. All right, so we'll put our statements and our reasons. Okay, so we have a lot of given information. So that's the first thing that we want to put down on the page. So we have that angle HEF is supplementary to angle EHG. We have that angle GFE is supplementary, and I'm just going to put that little mark there to say it's the same as the above, to angle FGH. We have that angle EHF is congruent to angle FGE. And then our last given statement here, 4 given statements. Our last given statement is that angle GHF is congruent to angle HGE. Okay. So 1 through 4 is given. Okay. So how are we going to move logically from this information to angle HEF being congruent to angle GFE? Well, let's look at this information. We have angle EHG, and we have angle FGH. Well, if I take the two congruent angles that we already know are congruent from the given information and combine them, then that would mean that then we have these larger angles, EHG and FGH, that must also be congruent. And the reason is because of the addition property. So previously we mentioned the subtraction property. Here we have the addition property. So if we're adding congruent angles to congruent angles, then the sums are congruent. So let's put that. So our fifth statement is that angle EHG is congruent to angle FGH. And the reason is because if congruent angles are added to congruent angles, the sums are congruent. And this is the addition property. Okay. All right, so we're almost there. Our last statement is actually going to be our conclusion. And this is because we can take this newfound information that we've just proved using the addition property and combine it with some of the given information. So the given information that we have these supplementary angles. So if I say now that angle HEF is congruent to angle GFE, well, let's see here. We have angle EHG, and that is congruent to FGH. So these are our two angles that we know two other angles are supplementary to from the given information. So angle HEF is supplementary to one of the angles, and angle GFE is supplementary to the other angle that we know are congruent to each other. So the reason why we know that these two angles are congruent is because supplements of congruent angles are congruent. Okay? And you can determine this on your own. Supplements of congruent angles are congruent. So if two angles are the same angles, and then you're taking two other angles and both of them are supplements to the first angles, then those two supplements must be congruent, because the subtraction of the two are just going to be something 180 minus whatever the congruent angles are. So I hope that makes sense.